hope you guys are doing well. My name is Stacy Stubblefield. I'm one of the co-founders of a company called TeleSign. We're based in Los Angeles. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the evolution of CPaaS. So let's get started. So who we are, I'm going to talk a little bit first about the evolution of TeleSign, just so you guys can get an idea of what we do and where we came from. So we started the company back in 2005 doing two-factor authentication via voice only. So our idea when we first started the company was to replace those little tokens that everybody uses to log into their bank account or to log into wherever they need to log into online. We were doing it only via voice at the time because nobody used text messaging back in 2005 in the US. I don't know if you guys can remember that far back. So that was our first year. In 2006, we added text messaging, thinking that it would be super simple, because everybody knows you just type in a phone number on your phone, you send a text message, it shows up. I mean, how hard can it be, right? We quickly learned that it was much more difficult than we expected. And so we spent a lot of time perfecting basically the technology that we use behind the scenes in order to send an SMS, and we really started getting into the telco space at that point. In 2010, we added more intelligence around phone numbers. So the types of clients that we work with, I should back up for a second and let you guys know that we work with 21 of the top 25 online properties around the world. So how many of you guys have received a one-time passcode via text message from a website? Raise your hands. Yeah. So most likely that came from us. There's a really good chance that that came from us. And so you've probably interacted with us already in the past. And so those are the types of clients that we serve, and they wanted to be able to have more intelligence around the phone numbers that people were entering in on the website. And I'll get into that and why they want that information a little bit more in a few minutes. But anyway, that was part of our evolution, was adding this telecom data. In 2016, it's kind of surprising that we waited this long to do this, but in 2016, we opened up our APIs so that our clients could send more types of messages beyond just two-factor authentication. So we had really kept it closed to that point and considered ourselves more of a security company. We opened up to being more of a communications company in 2016. And then in 2017, finally, we were purchased by a company called Bix, which I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with Bix, but they're the fourth, okay. Yeah, raise your hands, actually, if you're familiar with Bix. Okay, so pretty much everybody knows who they are. Fourth largest wholesale voice carrier in the world, and also offering a bunch of other telecom-related services to carriers, mostly. That's our story. So now let's talk about the evolution of CPaaS. 2005 was when we started, and CPaaS was, of course, not a term that people used back in 2005. The web itself was still very static back then. Again, I know it's very difficult to think back that far, but websites back in 2005 were really just used to tell the user of the website something. They weren't super interactive. Facebook was actually founded in 2004, and the term Web 2.0 was coined in 2004, and Web 2.0 was really about bringing interactivity to the web. But before that, again, and we saw the same types of things out of communications back then. They were very static. They were meant more to push information to users and not really to let them communicate back to you or to let them communicate with each other. So the types of communications APIs that were available back then were email, which was used almost entirely for spamming. Call broadcast, again, used very much for telemarketing. SMS aggregator APIs, again, very much used for spamming people and also not all that reliable. The closest thing that existed back in the day to a CPaaS player was a company called Voxeo. I don't know, again, how many people have heard of Voxeo. This is an interesting room because in most rooms, no one has ever heard of Voxeo. And they were really ahead of their time, though. They were pretty impressive with their programmable voice API that existed way back in the day. So that was the closest thing to a CPaaS player back then. Today, we've seen very much the evolution of the web. So most trafficked websites in the world are very interactive websites. We have Facebook, Instagram, we have, well, apps as well, WhatsApp, Twitter. All of these are very much focused around letting users communicate with each other and communicate back and forth with the website itself. And as an extension, or maybe as a result, we have also seen a lot of interactivity added via API. So different channels that are now available via API that clients can use to push information back and forth. So basically every channel is now available via a simple API for phone and for voice, for SMS, MMS, RCS, video, email, push notification, OTT, basically any channel you can think of now available via API. I'm sure you guys all know that, but what is next? So I'm going to talk a bit about what we're seeing in the market and what our clients are asking for and where they're going next. So while we have seen the evolution of CPaaS players and the types of services they're offering, we've also very much seen a huge evolution in our clients. Our clients have become much more sophisticated. So back in the day, when our clients would come to us looking for text messaging services or for two-factor authentication services, they knew basically nothing about telecoms. They would show up, ask us a few questions, we would talk to them about how we differentiate from other providers, but they didn't really know what we were talking about. And they would make a decision largely based on relationships and pricing. I mean, that's what it came down to. Now they are very mature in many cases. A lot of them have realized how strategic communications are to their business, and they, in some cases, have entire groups in the company dedicated to communications or to telecoms in general. So we have really had to up our game and make sure that when we are talking to them, we are providing them with a level of service that is on at least the same level that they're on, if not higher, hopefully higher, right? So because of that, or maybe as a result of that, we have seen a lot of carriers starting to merge together with CPaaS players, either buying CPaaS players or becoming players themselves in a way. So carriers opening up their network or via APIs that developers can use. So we have, on both sides, we have companies like Nexmo getting acquired by Vonage. We have a company like TeleSign getting acquired by Bix. And then we also have telecoms like bandwidth.com opening up their network via APIs. Same with Swisscom and also Telkomsel, and there are some others out there. And we think that this is great, obviously, because it has a lot of benefits on every side. So to the CPaaS player, to the carrier, and to the client. So to talk through just some of those basic benefits to the CPaaS provider, of course, CPaaS can now provide, in this scenario, they can control the quality from end to end, control the service levels, rather than just taking a communications request and throwing it down whatever route was available at the time. They can more strategically determine which route to use and how to get the communication to the user. Of course, better pricing because there's no middleman, access to telco-grade tools that they would not otherwise have access to, things that are actually very important like routing and troubleshooting tools, fraud prevention. Fraud obviously continues to be a huge problem in the telco space, so it's very important to be able to identify and block that. And then also offering additional carrier assets, so IoT, USSD, and whatnot. There's a lot of carrier assets that are available that haven't been that the potential hasn't been fully realized on yet. And then providing additional telco knowledge that they didn't otherwise have access to. Benefits to carriers, there are many. So improving their cost structure and generating more usage, taking a larger piece of the pie. So instead of giving part of the pie away to whoever the CPaaS provider was, they now get to keep that. Monetizing their assets in new ways. And I think the most important really is having a closer relationship with the client. So instead of being one step removed from the client and not really understanding what these companies are using their assets for, they have a much closer feel of what's going on and where the value lies in the assets that they're providing. And then most importantly, the benefits to clients. So we have seen how clients respond to this combination. Of course, they're very happy with the lower pricing, better quality, that's all obvious. But they've also started coming to us with more telco-oriented requests. So for example, sometimes they have a pricing target that they're looking to meet, and we can't necessarily hit that pricing target, so we can actually walk them into a discussion directly with the carrier so that they can talk to them and negotiate with them directly, which can be super helpful. Same thing if there's an issue terminating some SMS message or some voice message, we can talk directly to the terminating carrier now instead of being 2 or 3 steps removed, which is super helpful. And then we're also seeing some more creative asks from clients at this point now that they understand that we have access to deeper carrier assets that we didn't have access to before. So for example, we've seen some IoT asks. We've seen asks around authentication using the carrier network, and even more, I would say the highest interest that we've had now that clients have really thought through what we have access to is data. So the data that the carriers have about their users, about their subscribers. Of course, websites are very interested in that, which is the topic of the next few slides. So clients don't just want to connect to their users anymore. They want to connect to them intelligently. They want to make sure that they're connecting to them through the right channel. There's actually 4 major questions that they're looking to answer on a regular basis, and those are, is the client that I'm communicating with, is this even a user that I want to communicate with in the first place? If it is, or if it was originally, is it still the same user that I want to communicate with? What's the best channel to communicate with this user through? And also, what should I be communicating to this user? I'll go through each of those questions and how carriers can help answer them. So, is this a user they want to communicate with? A lot of people outside of the web industry don't understand the amount of fraud that takes place in that industry. There are millions of fake accounts that get created on a regular basis. This has started hitting the news more and more over the past year or two, but it has been a problem for at least 10 years. There are people who just want to create accounts to do for nefarious purposes. So they use them for spamming, they use them for fraud, they use them for affiliate marketing. There's all kinds of things that you can do with it. So our clients need to make sure users are actually good. Here is a little bit more information about the fake account problem. There's a new article coming out basically every day at this point. Millions and millions of fake accounts used for all kinds of terrible things. And then another problem along those same lines, intermingled with the previous problem, are anonymous numbers. So VoIP numbers can be used, again, to create thousands or millions of accounts, to verify new users when they're signing up. Once that phone number has been verified, even if it's a good user who just wants to be anonymous for some reason, you can essentially never reach that user again if they've given you a temporary VoIP number. There are many apps out there that provide this service. There's one called Burner app, Pinger, Text Free, Text Now. I get confused on which one is which. There are even websites where you can go on and look at messages that have been sent to a shared phone number. So there are all of these people that are basically trying to get around phone-based verification in these different ways. Did you guys know that? Is this yeah? Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Preaching to the choir. Okay, cool. But so carriers can really help out with this much more than any other data source that we have been able to find, because carriers know this subscriber for the most part. They know how long this subscriber has had an account with them. They know the type of phone the subscriber is using. They know if the subscriber is reliable, if they're using it on a regular basis, if this is a free SIM card that has never had any outbound calls and only gets inbound messages. So all of this type of data is extremely helpful for identifying these bad users. I'm gonna have to speed it up a little bit here, guys. All right, is this the user they want to communicate with? Another problem that our clients have is they will tie a phone number to a user account, but then the phone number in some way gets disconnected from that user account. The most common way is deactivation. This is not nefarious in any way. This isn't really fraud or anything. It's just somebody deactivating their phone number and then forgetting to tell all of the websites that their phone number has been associated to where their phone number has been associated to them. So that's definitely a big problem. On the fraud side, we also see SIM swap, phone number porting to another carrier where a fraudster can then basically take over the phone number, and then call forwarding. All of these are ways to take over a phone number and then use it for some nefarious purpose, typically to log into someone's bank account and transfer out money. So, SIM swap and porting in the news. You guys have probably heard these stories already. There is fraud that is definitely happening using these methods, and there has even now been a suit filed against AT&T and T-Mobile for allowing the SIM swap to happen because a cryptocurrency investor lost many hundreds of millions of dollars. I'm not sure how much they lost, but they're suing for $224 million, so that's a pretty good suit there. Carriers, again, have the information to stop this, and the types of information, again, that they have is whether the phone number has been ported recently, whether the SIM has been changed recently. All of this type of information can help stop this fraud, and so it, of course, is extremely valuable to our users. It's just another asset that can be monetized by the carriers to help out these clients who need the help at this point. And then how should the company communicate with the user? There is some other data that's helpful to know: the type of phone, the type of device, whether this device is RCS enabled, coupling that information with information around how reliable the channel is for delivery, how often people actually act upon that channel, and pricing can also be used to let clients know what is the best way to communicate with this user. And then finally, what should they communicate to the user? Now this is, of course, much more controversial. However, we're getting asked for it, so I figured I'd let you guys know. Most websites that are not large internet players don't have that much information about their users, especially brand new users. And that puts them at a disadvantage to the large internet players. And so this is a place where carriers could potentially play to help them, to help bring them to a similar level to what the larger companies are able to know about their users and use that information to provide more customized communications. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but recently Android, I feel like it's recently, maybe it's been happening forever, has started popping up information on my Android device. Anytime I go to a new place, they start sending me notifications like, did you like this restaurant? How was this? I don't know, they'll probably send me one for this event, actually, and ask me how it was. So the fact that they have all of this information and nobody else has it is a huge disadvantage to anyone who wants to play in that space. So any type of information that can help bring other companies onto the same level would be super helpful to every other internet property out there. Okay, and just a few more industry predictions. Because the topic is the evolution of CPaaS. We think that there's going to be further stratification between the types of CPaaS players that are out there. So we now have the very deep telco players, the ones that are really part of a carrier or interacting very much with a carrier, versus those that are providing higher level services, so more of the logic on top of the CPaaS. There are some companies that try to bridge both, but it's my personal opinion that it's hard to do both, very difficult. And so it would make more sense for there to be more distance between the two, where they are more specialized. Also, now that communications is a core piece of tech infrastructure, you see companies like AWS offering it out via SNS, Pinpoint, Chime, Connect. They have a lot of different CPaaS-related services now. And so we think that it's possible that their competitors might start doing the same type of thing. And then it's also possible that Google and Apple could start offering, and I actually think Apple already does this, direct communications and bypass completely the carrier space so that you can communicate with their people who own their devices directly. So those are our predictions about the future of CPaaS, and that is it. I'm a little bit over time. Any questions? Do we do questions or no?
Yep. Any questions for Stacy? Okay, just hang on a minute, Jean. Let me get the microphone there. Here you go.
First of all, great seeing you up there. Thanks for keeping up the event. And my question is, as you go through this whole evolution, what have you seen in terms of ROI request? What changes have you seen?
That's a really good question. So, of course, clients want very high ROI for everything they're doing. So they're constantly trying to push the price down. We've seen a lot of compression on the price of SMS and voice calling, of course. However, data is extremely valuable to all of these types of companies. I mean, web players, the most valuable web players are the ones that collect the most data, right? So that is where we see a lot of potential for higher ROI for both the carrier, if they're able to offer that type of data out, and for our clients, because they're able to make really good use of that data.
Okay, hang on a sec, Dean. Just so you know, Stacy, this guy.
Yeah. Troublemaker? Okay.
I've got a loud voice even without the microphone.
Here you go. Sorry.
Thank you for that. Some interesting stuff. I spotted the Pixar position, so that was good. I think, okay, you mentioned the zombie, but not the gorilla. Yes. And it's still trying to... The gorilla, you conspicuously avoided the word Twilio. Or maybe it's an elephant. Where do you see what you were saying there fit into the overall landscape? You know, given their presence is hard to ignore. Even I know they're competing, but yeah, they're clearly partly setting the agenda.
They are, and you guys really have difficult questions. They're going in a different direction than what I'm talking about. I'm talking about doing more customized, basically using telecom assets to provide more customized communications to users. They're adding more channels, essentially, and they're more of what I would have said in this when I was talking a bit about stratification. I would call them more of the logic piece. So they're doing more high-level logic and less, as far as I'm aware, getting deep into carriers. Now, maybe there are things going on that I don't know about, but so I see them less as like actually creating APIs into carrier assets at this point, and more just making it super easy for developers around the world to send a message or provide, a call center or whatever.
Are you seeing RCS as a potential person-to-person tool, or is it now just confined to this semi-mythical messaging as a platform play?
Yeah, I would personally see it more of as an A to P type of messaging service rather than P to P at this moment, because there's just not that much coverage, right? So what are the chances that two people who are talking to each other are both going to be, are both going to have RCS enabled on their phones and on their carriers even. So at the moment, I think that is the case. I think it's going to be really, really hard for carriers to find a reason or to make it worthwhile for a user to use RCS rather than just using WhatsApp or whatever, Viber, whatever country they happen to be in. But I mean, we'll see if that changes. And of course, everybody knows that Google has a big push around RCS. And if they just make that their, the messaging that's built into the phone, which is what they're doing, then I think people will start using RCS without even realizing it, right? So we'll see how far they get with that. We know they've been trying on this for a few years, so let's see.
Excellent. Again, another round of applause for some excellent Q&A. Thank you, Stacey.